Hi. I've been thinking lately how humans are very complex psychologically. And it sounds like a cliche, right? When we explore our own selves, we can see how we're constantly in a process of thinking, contemplating, observing, changing. Maybe some of your preferences that you have today are very different than you had 5-10 years ago. Maybe you've come to like certain things and dislike other things that you used to like. Maybe you've changed your mind on specific issues, or in specific situations you find yourself doing different things than you would expect yourself to do. So within ourselves, we are operating under the assumption that we are not black and white. And in fact, when we try to think in terms of black and white, often that kind of thinking causes us discomfort, because you have to make a choice, A or B, and somehow you intuit that there are other choices and there are nuances to every situation. And how do you reconcile the nuances into just two categories, A or B, to make a decision? So that's the world we live in our own heads, a complex world that sometimes confuses us, sometimes intrigues us, and sometimes it gets us in trouble. And yet when we look at another person, we expect them to be a known quantity. When we first meet someone, we go through a process of discovery. We're very curious about each other, we ask questions of each other, we're trying to find our way into each other, and that process of discovery is kind of exciting. But then every relationship reaches a point where we sort of think and feel like we know the other person, and somehow we arrest all development at that point. From there onward, we start to think like we know what they like, we know how they are, we know what they'll do, and we're relying on that knowledge. We're relying on the certainty that that's exactly how it is, and somehow we don't allow for them to be as complex as we are, and we don't allow for them to change or to have their own nuances in their own minds. So then we rebel against whatever conflicting information or action is coming from them towards us, because it's not something that we expect. And that applies not just to relationships with partners, significant others, but it applies to relationships with our parents, our children, our friends, our co-workers. We always have a process of discovery, and then we settle into, I know who you are, I know how you are, and that's how it's always going to be. And with our children especially, just because we raise them, it doesn't mean that we know them. And as they go through puberty and finding themselves, we definitely don't know them. So we can't constantly act like, I know what's best for you, I know who you are, you can't surprise me. It's kind of sad to assume that people can't surprise you. You want people to surprise you. And yes, they can surprise you in a bad way, like something you don't expect or you don't like, but they can surprise you in wonderful ways. You can be proud of them in so many ways. So here's how to navigate this kind of weird polarity where we think ourselves to be constantly changing and we think of our partners not to be changing. I hear that from couples, and I hear that from people that are going through turbulence in their relationships. They usually say, well, I've changed and I've evolved. I want to keep learning and evolving, but my partner is staying the same. How's that possible? Nobody can stay the same. We all have our own experiences. We all filter our reality through our own experiences and our own learning. We're constantly learning, even if we're not trying to learn. So how is it that your partner is staying the same? Perhaps you haven't been checking in with your partner. And this is what I think is what brings relationships to places of turbulence and often causes them to fall apart is that the parties involved stop being curious about each other. They stop checking in with each other. So how do you check in with each other? When do you check in with each other? All the time. So therapist offices are full with couples in marriage therapy. And one of the first things the therapist tells you that you need to communicate. And they give you exercises on how to communicate. But they often don't tell you what to communicate. And so people end up talking about what they want and what they need. And they start to learn skills to get what they want and what they need. But that's not where a relationship happens. On some level, the relationship is about meeting each other's needs, or otherwise we wouldn't be in a relationship. But the actual meat of the relationship is in how we feel about each other and who we are when we are with each other. And that's where the communication needs to happen. That's where the check-in needs to happen. Things like, hey, what are you thinking about today? What's on your mind now? These are the conversations that need to be happening on a daily basis. Not just like, what do we need to get for the house? Where do we need to take the kids? What's going on with your work? Are you going to get the promotion? Do we have enough money for this? When are we going to go on vacation? Don't look at other people. These are not the conversations that need to be happening as much as the conversation of who are you? What is intriguing you in your life right now? And you yourself volunteering that information, even if you're not asked. Hey, this is what I've been thinking about. What do you think about this? And did you hear about that? Here's what I'm thinking and here's where I'm coming from. So you're constantly updating your partner, your friends, your children in a way, and updating yourself about them with what's really stirring within you. How things are passing through you, how you're reflecting on yourself, on life, on situations, how you're processing life and situations and each other. And when you're doing that kind of together processing or together checking in, you're always updated on who you are and how you are. And the illusion of this person being a stagnant something will fade away, because you will see them in the process of becoming. You will see them in the process of becoming who they are. So my challenge for you for today and maybe this week and maybe this month is volunteer your process to your partner. Volunteer your process to your children, to your parents. Sit down whenever, maybe out on a walk, you're not sitting down, however you want to do it, but find the time to open up into your universe and let them see what's inside of you. What's interesting to you? What are you working on personally? And see if you can coax a conversation of that sort with them and see how much they will open up. Don't expect a lot. People don't often feel comfortable just opening up and being bare out there because they're still in the process of something. Sometimes people think, I figure it out first, then I'll let you know. But it's good to figure things out together. It's good to think on your feet and with your partners and the relationships you want to continue and preserve and nurture. Together is better than alone. Reflecting off of each other, reflecting on each other's process is better than being alone. So that's all I have for today.